Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. The Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Iskan Bibli Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada ki. Gruntarot Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 26, entitled Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. We're starting a new chapter today, right? And we're doing text 1. śrī-bhagavān uvāca. Atha sampravakṣyāmi. Atha sampravakṣyāmi. tattvānāṁ lakṣaṇaṁ pṛthak. Tattvānāṁ lakṣaṇaṁ pṛthak. Yad viditvā vimucyeta. Yad viditvā vimucyeta. puruṣaḥ prākṛtair guṇaiḥ. puruṣaḥ prākṛtair guṇaiḥ. śrī-bhagavān uvāca. Atha sampravakṣyāmi. tattvānāṁ lakṣaṇaṁ pṛthak. Yad viditvā vimucyeta. puruṣaḥ prākṛtair guṇaiḥ. Vaishnavis. Okay. śrī-bhagavān uvāca. The personality of Godhead said, atha, now, te, to you, sampravakṣyāmi, I shall describe, tattvānāṁ, of categories of the absolute truth. Sorry, of the categories of the absolute truth. lakṣaṇaṁ, the distinctive features. pṛthak, one by one. Yat, which. Viditvā, knowing. Vimucyeta, one can be released. puruṣaḥ, any person. prākṛtair, of the material nature. guṇaiḥ, from the modes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued, my dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad-gītā, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, only through devotional service, bhaktyā abhijānāti. As stated in the Bhagavatam, the object of devotional service is Mam, Kṛṣṇa. And as explained in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, to understand Kṛṣṇa means to understand Kṛṣṇa in his personal form with his internal energy, external energy, his expansions, and his incarnations. There are many diverse departments of knowledge in understanding Kṛṣṇa. Sāṅkhya philosophy is especially meant for persons who are conditioned by this material world. It is generally understood by the paramparā system or by disciplic succession to be the science of devotional service. Preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained. Now, the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. The same assertion is confirmed in the Bhagavad-gītā, tattvānāṁ tattvato gyatva. By understanding the Lord according to various categories, one can become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. This is explained here. By understanding the science of devotional service and Sāṅkhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. The eternal self, after becoming freed from the spell of material nature, becomes eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. As long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature, there is no chance of being free from the influence of nature's material modes. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead analytically, as explained in the Sāṅkhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapiladeva. Om Ganātamaram Dashrajanam Janashalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadapti Swapadantikam. So a lot of important information being imparted to us in this translation and the purport. And the one sentence that really struck me as being the closest sentence to an instruction within this purport is this one that comes, as long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature, there is no chance of his being freed from the influence of nature's material modes. So, in other words, and I think earlier in the purport we hear that unless you're freed from the material modes, you're not going back to Godhead. You can't go back to Godhead while you're still influenced by nature's material modes. So this is significant because we want to go back to Godhead. The reason we want to go back to Godhead is because we can't be happy here. We're all trying to be happy. There was a famous president of the United States. He said, you can fool some of the people some of the time, or some of the people all the time, and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all the time. So I'm going to paraphrase that and change the meaning a little bit. Some of the people are doing something all of the time, and all of the people are doing some of the time, but all of the people all of the time are trying to be happy. That's a universal. All of the people, not just people, any living entity, people, animals, fish, plants, Prabhupada, I heard him say in one lecture, the plants all, as they grow, they'll go towards the sun. Everything that's alive is trying to be happy. And practically you can analyze the psychology, you can understand the psychology of everything that's alive. What it's trying to do is it's trying to, any ant, any little insect, it's trying to move towards, or, something that's going to be pleasurable, or avoid something that's going to be unpleasurable. That's the basis of psychology, okay? Anandamaya Bhyasat, it's backed up. That's Vedanta Sutra. Prabhupada quotes that sometimes. Every living entity is hankering after pleasure. So we want to be happy, but we can't be happy here in this material world, okay? How can I say that? Well, aside from the fact that Kṛṣṇa says it in the Bhagavad-gītā, Brahma, Bhuvana, Loka, Punara, Vartina, Arjuna, Mamu, Pṛthak. It's a place of dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It's temporary, miserable. But there's examples. Thank you. There's examples of how you can't be happy. Let's look at the history, okay? The Vedic history of the most successful people in the material world. Who is the most successful materialist in history? Hiranyakasipu. He was. He controlled the entire universe. He was very successful materially. But Prabhupada said in the lecture, he said he wasn't happy. At least he wasn't happy about the fact that his son became a devotee. Let's analyze that, okay? So here's Hiranyakasipu. You got to understand that these demons, sometimes we tend to ridiculize demons in the course, like sometimes in our discussions or plays or even, but no, they're together guys, like Hiranyakasipu. He was intelligent enough to get benedictions from Lord Brahma. He wasn't just some goofball that couldn't think straight. He was like a very together materialist. So was Ravana. But let's talk about Hiranyakasipu. So there he was in control of the entire universe. And what got him so upset? When he discovered his son was worshiping the enemy, Vishnu. See, and it wasn't like he couldn't understand. He couldn't have put the whole thing in the proper perspective. Oh, well, yeah, it's true that Vishnu did kill my brother, but my brother was kind of like a hothead, and he was always looking for fights. And Vishnu, after all, is superior even. He could have understood the whole thing, but he couldn't because he was just too envious. In the third chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, it goes, Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nityavairino kamarupena kunteya duspalain analenacha. That thus a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and burns like fire. See, so you could generalize that. Material desire is never satisfied and it burns like fire. No matter how much you have, if you're in material consciousness, you're not satisfied. You want more. Hiranyakasipu wanted more. Maybe not gross material possessions, but he wanted that he was exclusively worshipped. His son couldn't worship Vishnu. His son had to be worshiping him. That was bothered him to the point of wanting to persecute his son, and to the point where he was attempted to kill his son. He wasn't happy. The bottom line is he wasn't happy. Ravana, same thing. He had everything. It's not that he didn't have a beautiful wife. He had a beautiful wife, Mandodari. She's considered one of the 7 chaste women, or 6 chaste women. I can't remember what it is, but she was beautiful. She was everything, And he was Ravana, and he could have had other women too, but he had to have Sita. You see, so he wasn't satisfied. He as powerful as he was, as successful as he wasn't satisfied. Okay, you could say, well, these guys are out and out demons, forget about them. Of course they can't be happy. Let's take let's go to another example. Let's take Durvasa Muni, a much more sattvic, Kunamoto goodness kind of personality. Durvasa Muni, I think he's a qualitative incarnation of Lord Shiva, if I remember correctly. He was full of mystic powers. He was like a super accomplished yogi. I mean, I don't know if there's a yogi, aside from maybe Kardama Muni, who was more successfully yogically than Durvasa Muni, He could do anything, basically. I'm not going to go into the different yogic powers. He had them all, okay? But despite the fact that he was so successful as a yogi, he was envious of Maharaj Ambrish. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't stand the fact that here's this ordinary king, and he's getting honored and glorified, and more than me, who is this guy? He's just like some ordinary king. I'm this great yogi, mystic yogi, and people are honoring him more than me. Now I'm going to do something. He wasn't happy. You see, so there's a verse in I think it appears in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Just to make sure I get it right. Kṛṣṇa bhakta nishkama ataiva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami shakala ashanta. It means that all these personalities who are after gross material desire, liberation, mystic powers, they can't be happy. It's just set up in that way. The material energy is constructed or designed in such a way that if you want material enjoyment in the form of gross sense pleasure, gyan, liberation, or mystic powers, you're not going to be happy. It's just, as I said, the machinery, this gross and subtle machinery, the material energy is set up in such a way that you're not going to be happy. But Kṛṣṇa bhakta nishkama ataiva shanta. The devotee of Kṛṣṇa can be peaceful and happy. So that's why it's important here, that it's saying here in this purport, as long as there's even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature, there is no chance of his being free from the influence of nature's material modes. So we really want to get free from nature's material modes, but it ain't easy. It ain't easy. I mean, raise your hand if you could honestly say that, I feel like I've made some serious efforts in Krishna consciousness, and despite the fact that, either on any particular day or even for a prolonged period of time, I've made serious efforts in Krishna consciousness to surrender, to get purified, to get free from material desire. The next morning I wake up and it's still there. They're still there. Raise your hand if you yeah. It's not easy to shake it, it just doesn't go away that easy. But it's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. There is a way, and that is, but it's more. It requires more than just our effort. I'll give you an example, okay, of where I'm going with this. Imagine here's a hypothetical situation. There's a guy. He's got a gun. He goes up. It's nighttime, and he goes up to a stoplight, and there's a guy pulls up in a nice, fancy, like a luxury car, stops at the light. And the guy with the gun goes up and says, knocks on the window, shows him the gun, says, get out of the car, And the guy, he gets out of the car because he sees the guy has a gun. And when he gets out of the car, the guy with the gun hits him on the back of the head with the gun, knocks him out. Doesn't kill him, but he knocks him out, the guy falls to the ground. He hops in the car, starts driving away. Anyway, it's one of these, despite the fact that it was at night, they caught him. They catch the guy, and he's obviously did it, and they catch him, and he's on what they call, they release him, they post bail and whatever. So when he's going to court, on his way to court, okay, he's going to be in front of the judge. Do you think, is he going to ask the judge for justice? I don't think so. If I'm saying, no, if he would ask for the judge for justice, what's going to happen? He'll go to jail for 20 years. Because he did it. He's guilty. He's guilty. He's guilty of armed robbery, assault and battery, grand larceny, whatever. He's guilty. He's going to go to jail for at least 10 to 20 years, like that. No probation, probably. But so what is he going to do? What is he going to do when he gets before the judge, if anything? He's going to ask for mercy. That's his only hope. Because he's guilty, you see? He has to ask for mercy. So actually, we are in the same situation. When I say we, I mean conditioned souls. Conditioned souls are guilty. We're not innocent. Nobody here in this material world is innocent. We're here in this material world because we're sinful. We were sinful. And that's why we're here in the material world. So we require mercy. We require mercy, to get out of the material world. We have to be forgiven. Yeah. So where is mercy? There is mercy. There is mercy. We require a volunteer for this part of the class. Can we have a volunteer from among the brahmacharis? Yeah, okay. Halayuta Kripa. That's always a tough name for me to remember. Go ahead. Go stand up and read. There's a plaque on Prabhupada's cushion there, just right in front of him. Read what the plaque says. Stop. That's enough. His divine grace. Okay? Now, what does that mean? You know, we hear it all the time. It's right there on the plaque, but what does that mean? Divine grace. Anybody? Because, you know, we're supposed to think about this stuff. What is divine grace? Well, what's grace? Well, divine grace is like another way of saying divine is synonymous with, say, God. So God's grace. So what is God's grace? Well, dictionary definition, doesn't look like anybody's raising their hand to give me an answer. So the dictionary definition for God's grace is a favor that's not fully earned or deserved. See? So in other words, it's like it's a special dispensation. That's what we need. And that's what Kṛṣṇa is offering. Kṛṣṇa offers that himself. At the end of the Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa says, if you abandon all varieties of religion, you know, give up all your nonsense programs for being happy and just surrender to me, I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So Kṛṣṇa, that's grace. Elsewhere, earlier in that same chapter, Kṛṣṇa says, Machchita matgatas prana burayan. No. He says, Machchita sarva durgani, mat prasada tarishyati, aham tvam sarva. And how's it go? He says, but if you become conscious of me, I will, you'll pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. By my grace. You see? Grace, mercy. We need that. It's a special favor from Kṛṣṇa. And it's part of a relationship. Anyway, the spiritual master is an extension. He's an extension of the mercy of Kṛṣṇa, of the grace of Kṛṣṇa. That's why every morning in that prayer by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we pray, Yasya prasādāt bhagavat prasādo, yasya prasādāṁ nagatīth gatopi. That by the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets the mercy of Kṛṣṇa. As I mentioned in the previous class, the spiritual master has the power of attorney. He could do it. He's got the power of attorney. Whatever promises Kṛṣṇa is making, the spiritual master has that same authority. Just like here in Los Angeles, the example that stands out in my mind, there was that class that Prabhupada gave, where at the end of the class, he was talking about how you have to be 100% free from material desire to go back to Godhead. And he's looking around, he can see the devotees. At least this is the way I've heard Jayapataka Maharaj, Dina Bandhu, and somebody else tell the same story. He said, Prabhupada was looking around, he could see the devotees were kind of like a little down, because that's a high standard. So Prabhupada kept speaking. He said, well, 90% free, and you go back to Godhead. And still the devotees kind of looked a little bit down in the mouth. And, well, 80%, even if you're 80% free from, pure devotees, 80% free from material desire, you go back to Godhead. And still, then he talked a little more, and he ended the class, and then he was right here, and he was leaving. As he was exiting, he looked back and he said, well, 70%. And he threw his chutter over his shoulder and walked out. So how could he make a statement like that? Because he has the power of attorney. You see, it's not like Prabhupada's just kind of, playing on people's sense. No, he had the power of attorney. The spiritual master has the power of attorney. He can, make a deal. He could broker a deal on behalf of Kṛṣṇa. That's my analysis of that. So we have to get the mercy of the spiritual master in order to become, ultimately, to get Daivihi Esha Gunamai Mama Maya Durachaya. Mame Biye Papajante Mayami Tamtanatite. Kṛṣṇa says this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is Durachaya. It's insurmountable. But one who surrenders unto me, and Prabhupada says in the purport, or the spiritual master can cross beyond it. So that's it. Yeah, effort has to be there on our part, that's for sure. But ultimately, we're dependent upon the mercy of the higher authority. Kṛṣṇa himself, or more practically, the spiritual master. So today is a very a special day. Today is the anniversary of the day that Prabhupada landed in America. So I'm going to read an excerpt from the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, where that occasion is described. After a 35-day journey from Calcutta, the Jaladuta reached Boston's Commonwealth Pier at 5:30 a.m. on September 17, 1965. The ship was to stop briefly in Boston before proceeding to New York City. Among the first things Srila Prabhupada saw in America were the letters A and P painted on a pier front warehouse. The gray waterfront dawn revealed the ships in the harbor, a conglomeration of lobster stands and drab buildings, and rising in the distance, the Boston skyline. Prabhupada had to pass through U.S. Immigration and Customs in Boston. His visa allowed him a 3-month stay, and an official stamped it to indicate his expected date of departure. Captain Pandya invited Prabhupada to take a walk in Boston, where the captain intended to do some shopping. They walked across a footbridge into a busy commercial area with old churches, warehouses, office buildings, bars, tawdry bookshops, nightclubs, and restaurants. Prabhupada briefly observed the city, but the most significant thing about his short stay in Boston, aside from the fact that he had now set foot in America, was that at Commonwealth Pier he wrote another Bengali poem entitled Markine Bhagavat Dharma, which translates Teaching Krishna Consciousness in America. Some of the verses he wrote on board the ship that day are as follows. My dear Lord Kṛṣṇa, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why should you bring me to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by the modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva, Kṛṣṇa. I do not know how they will be able to understand it, but I know that your causeless mercy can make everything possible, because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? O Lord, I'm simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will, and therefore, if you like, by your will, they will also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and most fallen. Therefore, I'm seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. O Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, O Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. Or he could say that again. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board the ship Jaladuta, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, dated 18 September 1965. Just another paragraph here or so. He was now in America. He was in a major American city, rich with billions, populated with millions, and determined to stay the way it was. Prabhupada saw Boston from the viewpoint of a pure devotee of Kṛṣṇa. He saw the hellish city life, people dedicated to the illusion of material happiness. All his dedication and training moved him to give these people the transcendental knowledge and saving grace of Krishna consciousness. Yet he was feeling weak, lowly, and unable to help them on his own. He was but, quote, an insignificant beggar, end quote, with no money. He had barely survived the 2 heart attacks at sea. He spoke a different language. He dressed strangely. He had come to tell people to give up meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling, and to teach them to worship Lord Kṛṣṇa, who to them was a mythical Hindu god. What would he be able to accomplish? Helplessly, he spoke his heart directly to God. I wish that you may deliver them. I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them. End quote. And for convincing them, he would trust in the power of God's holy name and in the Śrī-bhagavān. This transcendental sound would clean away desire for material enjoyment from the hearts and awaken loving service to Kṛṣṇa. On the streets of Boston, Prabhupada was aware of the power of ignorance and passion that dominated the city, but he had faith in the transcendental process. He was teeny, but God was infinite, and God was Kṛṣṇa, his dear friend. On the 19th of September, the Jaladuta sailed into New York Harbor and docked at Brooklyn Pier at 17th Street. Srila Prabhupada saw the awesome Manhattan skyline, the Empire State Building, and like millions of visitors and immigrants in the past, the Statue of Liberty. Srila Prabhupada was dressed appropriately for a resident of Vrindavan. He wore kunti mala, neck beads, and a simple cotton dhoti, and he carried japamala, chanting beads, and an old shutter or a shawl. His complexion was golden, his head was shaven. His sika was in the back, his forehead decorated with whitish Vaishnav tilak. He wore pointed white rubber slippers, not uncommon for sadhus in India. But who in New York had ever seen or dreamed of anyone appearing like this Vaishnava? He was possibly the first Vaishnav sannyasi to arrive in New York with uncompromised appearance. Of course, New Yorkers have an expertise in not giving much attention to any kind of strange new arrival. But Srila Prabhupada was on his own. He had a sponsor, Mr. Agarwal, somewhere in Pennsylvania. Surely someone would be here to greet him, although he had little idea of what to do as he walked off the ship onto the pier. Quote, "I did not know whether to turn left or right," end quote. He passed through the dockside formalities and was met by a representative from Traveler's Aid, sent by Mr. Agarwal in Pennsylvania, who offered to take him to the Scindia ticket office in Manhattan to book his return passage to India. At the Scindia office, Prabhupada spoke with the ticket agent, Joseph Forrester, who was impressed by this unusual passenger's Vaishnava appearance, his light luggage, and his apparent poverty. He regarded Prabhupada as a priest. Most of Scindia's passengers were businessmen or families, so Mr. Forrester had never seen a passenger wearing the traditional Vaishnava dress of India. He found Srila Prabhupada to be a pleasant gentleman who spoke of the nice accommodations and treatment he had received aboard the Jaladuta. Prabhupada asked Mr. Forrester to hold the space for him on a return ship to India. His plans were to leave in about 2 months, and he told Mr. Forrester that he would keep in touch. That's significant. That's accurate. I've heard elsewhere, Prabhupada said his plan was to come and find a market for his books. He wasn't even totally that, okay, I'm going to go start a big movement in America. Because he says, save a place for me in 2 months, right? To hold space for him on a return ship to India. His plans were to leave in about 2 months. He had a 3-month visa. And he told Mr. Farr to keep in touch, carrying only 40 rupees cash, which he himself called a few hours spending in New York, an additional $20 he had collected from selling 3 volumes of the Bhagavatam to Captain Pandya. Srila Prabhupada, with umbrella and suitcase in hand, still escorted by the Traveler's Aid representative, set out for Port Authority bus terminal to arrange for his trip to Butler. So that's a little section from Satsrup Maharaj's Prabhupada Lilamrita describing that event. And just a couple of thoughts from myself. Archie just sent me a nice presentation by a godbrother of ours, Guru Garanga, that was made in Switzerland. Was it made in Switzerland? No, when he was here. Yeah, so he was here and he did a nice presentation. He was introduced by Garuda Prabhu. And one thing that stuck with me when I was watching this, it was a video, was that Prabhupada had the 2 heart attacks that were mentioned here. They were still, it was right at the beginning of the voyage. It was right at the beginning of the voyage, it was in the first few days. And the boat started in Calcutta and it went all the way down the coast of India and then swung around the bottom tip and went up. No, Prabhupada had time to bail out. He had 2 heart attacks. It wasn't like it was in the middle of the Atlantic or something like that. It's described he didn't have much money, but still he was along the coast of India. So imagine that, having 2 heart attacks. You're just getting started. You got about a month plus of traveling on the sea. The Atlantic is usually, it's called the Atlantic, not the Pacific, for a reason. It's generally like an ocean, is up and down. So if he was experiencing that along the coast, what to speak of what it was going to be like once the boat got out into the middle Atlantic. But Prabhupada stuck it out. He didn't bail out. When I was watching, I was thinking to myself, if that was me, I would have definitely hopped off the boat and said, okay, thank you, but I'm still in India. India people, there's dharmshalas, there's places he could stay even with no money. He could work his way back to Vrindavan and just go, hey, I gave it a shot, but 2 heart attacks, come on. What do you expect? I'm 69, 70 years old. But no, Prabhupada, that took tremendous courage and tremendous depending upon Kṛṣṇa, to stick it out. Because as I said, he had time to bail out. He could have bailed out. The boat was still along the coast of India. But he didn't. He just thought, no, it was like a do or die thing. I'm going to do this. And even if I die, I'll die, go down fighting, And of course, he had that dream where Kṛṣṇa appeared to him in the different forms of incarnations and just basically encouraged him and said, it's okay, just keep coming, it's okay, everything's going to be all right. And one of the engineers of the boat, not the captain, but one of the chief engineers, commented to Prabhupada. He said, wow, I never experienced such a peaceful, smooth passage across the Atlantic. He told that to Prabhupada, And Prabhupada said, yeah. He said, actually, I'm glad, because if it would have been like the normal, I think I would have died. I don't think I would have been able to handle it. So Prabhupada had, among so many other things, great courage to even make that trip. Okay, so I'll stop there. Does anybody have any question or comment? Yeah, Rabindranath Prabhu.
Regardless of the percentages or whatever, still don't you have to be free from all material desires, or you just want Kṛṣṇa? It's not that, I have some material desires and I could go back to Godhead like that.
Correct. Good point. Thank you. I'll clarify that. So Kṛṣṇa says in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. Out of compassion for them, I, who am dwelling within their heart, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So in other words, Kṛṣṇa can make up, he finishes the rest of the job. It's not like Prabhupada was saying, making a compromise. No, this is my understanding of it. Prabhupada's making the statement that you try your best, and even if you could only get, bottom line, 70%, I'll take care of the rest. You're going to go back purified. You're not going to go back contaminated, because you can't go back contaminated. You can't go back to the spiritual world if you're still contaminated with material desires. But if you just try sincerely like that, it was like Prabhupada's, compassion. It was a special concession that, okay, even if you're just 70% Kṛṣṇa conscious, all right. That's my understanding of that. And you could say, well, how could he do that? Well, as I said, the spiritual master has the power of attorney. He has the power of attorney. So if he sees that, if he feels that his individual is sincere enough, then he can do that. That's my understanding of how that works. Archita.
That's called kripa-siddha.
Kripa-siddha, yeah.
Yeah. In other words, normally you have to go by sadhana-siddha. You're a conditioned soul, you practice sadhana properly, you come to the purified stage, and then you can go back. But if you please the spiritual master somehow, and by his, like you said, power of attorney, even if you're not completely pure, by his power of attorney, he can bring you back to that. Because the living entity is by nature pure. We're covered by material energy, and either Kṛṣṇa or his representative can uncover us. We can't do it on our own. That verse you quoted, Devi Esha Gunamayi. So normally you have to surrender fully to Kṛṣṇa, and then he will bring you back to the pure state. But even if you're not fully surrendered, if you're trying, but that's the key, you have to try. It's not that I know I'm at 70%, I'm just going to stay here, and then my spiritual master will do the rest. You have to try. You can't fool Kṛṣṇa and you can't fool the spiritual master. So you have to be sincerely trying. And if somewhere or other you just haven't made it there, Prabhupada made an example once. He was standing next to the boat. He said, Kripa-siddha means I have some money, I'm trying to give it to you, you won't take it, and I stuff it in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. Sachi. No, Sachi first.
Yeah, in the Bhagavad-gītā, well, no, in the Bharata Kurukshetra, Kṛṣṇa mentioned also, he said, Konteya pratyanihi name bhakta pranashyati. He says, and I declare, Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. So one of the characteristics of this, of Kṛṣṇa with his pure devotees, is that he honors. And there are many examples, like for example, even when Lord Brahma was giving the benedictions to Hiranyakashipu, Kṛṣṇa had to come as Nishinga to break up all those, impediments that Hiranyakashipu was asking for immortality. So That's, one of the things that Prabhupada said, 70% Krishna comes and honors the words of his pure devotee out of love.
Yeah. Prema, thank you.
Hare Krishna. It's a very nice class, thank you. But it's also mentioned that, Kripa Siddhi is actually very rare. It's not easy to get it. There is some statement, I don't remember when I read it, and hear about it. So how you put together, mercy?
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. You led me right into something I wanted to share. I just heard this on a lecture the other day. Prabhupada goes, and he's talking about becoming Krishna conscious. He says, so everyone, this is my request, always be engaged. Either find out some work, or if you have no work, then chant Hare Krishna. Don't sit idly. Then Maya cannot touch you. Otherwise, she is always anxious how to capture you. Krishna buli ajiv boga vanchakade pasate maya tade japati yadade. Japati yadade, there's a Bengali word, just like you catch one person like this, and Prabhupada goes, he becomes immediately unfit to move. So Krishna Bulia, as soon as we forget Krishna and think of sense gratification, immediately Maya captures like that. Yes, yes sir, come on. Yes, like this. Krishna Bulia Ji, Boga Vanchakare, Pasate Mayatare. Pase, she is always on your side. On your side, meaning right next to you. Not, yeah. You haven't got to call. She is also as powerful as Krishna. Just like Krishna is present everywhere, similarly, Maya is also present everywhere. She is also one of the potencies of Krishna, just like police department. It is as powerful as government because it is a department of the government. Similarly, Maya is also another department of Krishna. So it is as powerful as Krishna. Our position is that we are controlled, predominated. We are not controller. Anyone who's thinking that I am controller is a fool. Nobody's controller, everyone is controlled. So if we do not put ourselves to be controlled by Krishna, meaning if we don't take the initiative to be engaged in devotional service, that's being controlled by Krishna. It says, then we shall be controlled by Maya. 2 ways. And then Prabhupada goes here. Now it is your selection. You cannot be independent, that's a fact. If you don't want to be controlled by Krishna, then you will have to be controlled by Maya. And if you don't want to be controlled by Maya, then you will have to take shelter of Krishna. 2 alternatives, that's all. So chant Hare Krishna. That was a nice instruction from Prabhupada. So we can end there. Thank you very much. Śrīmad Bhagavatam ki jai. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.